Welcome to Uxbridge Scugog Life. I'm your host, Jackie Hermans. I hope everyone had a really great March break. And we ended off March break with St. Paddy's Day, which is pretty cool. Green beer, anyone? So we have a really fun show. We are meeting with Eric Marchand, who is a film critic, finding out about some awesome movies that are about to hit the cinemas. We're also talking to a BDO financial expert, and we're talking about spring cleaning those finances. Mark Burney from Scugog Fire is going to be talking about how to prevent a kitchen fire. We're also talking about a new project called Farm 911, making sure that we can get those emergency services quickly to those farm properties. We'll be back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life. Keep on watching.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome. Join me on the Rogers TV Durham for learning yoga in just 10 classes. My name is Sri. I'm a yoga teacher at Yoga Point, and it's my privilege to spend the next few weeks with you.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. So today on the show, I have David Noronha.
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure I got that right from BDO.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Now, your title, you're Senior Vice President and Licensed Insolvency Trustee.
Correct.
What exactly is that?
So we are licensed professionals, licensed by the federal government to provide debt advice. We're the only professionals that can help people file a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy, and those are the legal ways of filing a debt restructuring plan, for lack of a better description. But we're a lot more than that as well. Some people call us debt consultants also, because what we like people to do is come in and talk to somebody that has been certified by the federal government to actually give you the proper advice when it comes to dealing with your debt. So if you're struggling with your debt payments or your cash flow and you're having trouble making ends meet and you don't know what your options are, we really would like you to contact us so that we can speak to you about your situation and give you the proper advice that you're entitled to receive, because unfortunately there's a lot of institutions out there now that aren't certified by the government that are providing this advice, and in some bad situations they're actually charging for that advice.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there a fee for the consultation?
Absolutely not. So any consultation that we give is completely free and it's completely confidential. So when you come in and meet us, or if you would like to do it virtually, we can do that with you as well. It's private. It's just between you and us, and we discuss your situation and we give you your options, and there's actually no obligation to do anything whatsoever. We just want you to have the right information so that you can make the right choice for you, and we're there to answer all of your questions. So depending on how the discussion goes, we can talk about anything that matters to you, and that's what's really, really important. So we like people to actually come in person if they're comfortable doing that, so that we can actually give you the advice firsthand.
Okay, so spring is around the corner, and a lot of people get themselves all mentally, emotionally prepared for spring cleaning, right? Pulling out the stove, pulling out the fridge, doing a super good job. And so your recommendation is, why don't spring clean your finances?
Absolutely. Preferably, I'd like you to do it all the time. That would be my preference, but I understand it can be intimidating and frustrating. And for a lot of people, it's not a fun exercise. So as long as you do it on a regular basis, that's what we want to see. And if you haven't done it, now's a good time to start. So we use spring as sort of the launching pad for that. Make it part of your yearly routine. Take a look at your situation, because right now, a lot of us are struggling with the way the economy is.
Yeah.
High interest rates, we don't know where they're going. They may go up again, maybe they go down. We really don't know. The cost of living is going up, so a lot of people are finding it really, really hard to make ends meet. And what we're seeing now, which is a very scary trend, is they're using their credit to pay for things that they're having trouble with their income meeting. So take a look at your situation. If you haven't done it, use spring as your launching pad to do that. Get a good look at your situation, and if you're not sure where to start, again, that's where we come in. We can help you review those things, but make it part of that routine, because if you don't know where you are financially, then you may be going down a road you really don't want to, and that's how people end up with debt problems. And then when you're struggling with debt, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to pay for my rent because I'm trying to pay for my debt. Or worst case scenario, I don't know if I have enough money for food. We don't want you in that situation. So if you haven't taken a look at your finances, use spring as your launching pad to start taking a really good hard look at where you are financially.
Okay, because going to your credit card to be able to pay for something when you don't have the money should be a last resort, right? Interest rates on credit cards are crazy high.
It's the highest way to borrow money.
Right.
So we understand the use of credit, and it's there for emergency purposes,
Yeah.
or if you have the money already in the bank, it's a convenience thing.
Right, and you can earn points, aeroplane,
Absolutely.
things like that, right?
And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But where we're finding Canadians getting into trouble is when the bill comes, they don't have enough money in the bank to pay it off in full. And the minute you make a minimum payment on your credit card balance, that's when you start paying interest. And every month you're going to see that interest charge in there. And again, if you're making the next minimum payment next month, the amount you pay is only going to interest first. And if it doesn't cover interest, your principal amount isn't shrinking. So what you end up doing every month is only paying the interest, and you're not eating away at the core of your debt.
And that's happening with most mortgages right now, right? Because prime is so high that people, when they're paying their mortgage, in many cases, they're only paying the interest.
Especially those that are in the variable rate.
Right.
Right, so it's when you locked in, if you locked in a fixed rate, you would be fine until it's time for renewal. And
Right.
hopefully when that happens, rates will have come down a little bit. But if you entered the pandemic with a variable rate mortgage and you're still on that, you would have seen your interest rate go up and up and up. So
Yeah.
your monthly payment has gone up and up and up and up.
Now, in order to spring clean your finances, the one thing that pops into my head is either creating a budget or reviewing your budget, because with the costs skyrocketing, let's really see where the money is going. And even starting that process
Right.
can be scary, right?
It is. It's intimidating, and we
Yeah.
completely understand that. But to your point, the budget is where you start. So if you have one, that's great. So whenever somebody comes in, that's one of the first things we do with them. Let's take a look at your budget. And unfortunately, a lot of the times we get, what's that? Or I really don't know, or I have a pretty good idea, but it's all up here. It doesn't work if it's all up there. You really need to see it in front of you, whether it's on a computer screen or on a piece of paper. So if you have a budget, great, we can look at it and then we can fine tune it to your point. If you don't have one, then that's where you really have to start, because a budget is something that you should have now and you should have throughout the rest of your life. It's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
It is fluid, it changes. You're always amending it or tweaking it based on how much you make, how much you spend, your life situations, interest rates,
Right.
changing jobs, changing relationships. All that affects your budget. To me, a budget is like my roadmap. I want to get from point A to point B. How am I going to get there? The budget will show you a way, but it doesn't mean you're not going to run into a roadblock. So where's your detour?
Right,
Well,
right.
you follow the map to get back onto the road. Well, that's what a budget is like. So if something happens like the pandemic, I still want to get from point A to point B, but now I've got this pandemic roadblock. How do I work around it to get back onto that path?
And so you provide that support to help
Absolutely.
people to do that. We could have probably a few shows on this.
Oh,
We'll have to have
absolutely.
you back because we need to wrap things up. But David,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being
My
on the
pleasure.
show.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
were born in Canada. We spoke English. On the streets, we weren't welcome. But on the field, we were the Asahi, Vancouver's champions. Everyone cheered for us. Our people had a voice. Then Canada declared war on Japan. They took us from our homes, called us enemies, forced us into camps. But we brought the game with us. Baseball helped get us through the internment.
The Vancouver Asahi were among the 22,000 Japanese Canadians interned during the Second World War. The team never played another game.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. With me on the show is Fire Chief Mark Burney of the Scugog. I was going to say, I had to say Scugog Fire.
Scugog Fire.
Scugog Fire, because I started getting in my head going, what is the official title? But everyone knows then, right?
Yes, they do.
Knows what we're talking about. So
Yes.
we're going to start off by talking about cooking safety.
Yes.
Easter's around the corner. We can
Yes.
have lots of things going on in the kitchen.
100%.
And we get fires.
Cooking fires is one of the leading causes of residential fires in Ontario, and one of the leading causes of personal injury as a result of fire in Ontario. So yes, I'd love to talk about cooking fires
Okay.
and how to
So
prevent them.
I can leave pots on the stove. I've done that before. So now I need to set alarms for myself. Remember, check it in 4 minutes, check it in, and I'm alarm central.
Guess what I brought with me?
You brought a pot.
I brought a pot. And
Awesome.
guess
That's
what
a
my
nice
pot guess what my pot has? A lid. I'm always going to keep my lid around.
Okay.
But you know what I want to show you is, what has caused these fires with unattended cooking, or people around the stove cooking with a whole bunch of things going on, like you were saying.
Yeah.
The first thing is unattended cooking. We walk away because there's so much else going on in the home, and we forget what's cooking. And sometimes what we're cooking is flammable. So one of the key things to putting that fire out is that lid. That pot is burning. That pot is burning. All I want to do is slip that lid over top of it and smother it.
Gotcha.
Smother the fire. 9 times out of 10, you'll put that fire out.
And is it more likely whether you have an electric stove or a gas stove as to whether pots can catch on fire, or it's just the heat and it
It's the
depends
heat.
on what's in it? What's in the pot?
It is. It's the heat, what's in the pot, and has what's in the pot burned down to or melted down to an ignitable source.
Okay.
So-
If someone were to take a big bowl of water and on top of it, if it's an electric stove,
Well,
that could.
the potential there more is what is burning, and if you put a whole bunch of water on what's burning, perhaps you're going to spread the fire.
Okay.
And let's use grease as an example. Grease burning, and you just put a whole bunch of water on it, perhaps you're just going to send that grease everywhere, still ignited.
Wow.
And now perhaps your counter's on fire, your cabinetry's on fire. So the best thing in this scenario, put a lid on it and turn the stove off. Remove the heat.
Okay.
Smother it and remove the heat.
Now, what type of why are personal injuries usually happening around the stove?
Yeah, personal injuries usually happen because we're reaching over something hot, or we're trying to extinguish the fire, like you had mentioned.
Yeah.
Let's look at reaching over the fires first. So I brought a tea towel with me, and I can remember my great aunt back in the day doing this and cooking. Okay, this could also.
It seems so fancy. I definitely don't cook like that.
I'm not a fancy cook, believe me. But this could also exemplify loose clothing. So
Right.
now I'm reaching over the stove with my loose clothing to perhaps get this pot from the back burner, and now this loose clothing is touching a hot burner and catching fire.
Okay.
And of course, now we're going to panic. What do we do? What do we do? The best thing you can do, again, is either smother it or go and soak it in cold water. So get that tap going and put out that clothing or that tea towel that's burning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great advice.
You're welcome.
All right, so there is a new project called Farm 911.
Yes, there is.
Tell me about that.
Sure. So Farm 911 is as a result of an unfortunate mishap in Eastern Ontario where a young lady by the name of Emily died as a result of her injuries in an agricultural field. Since that time, her family, along with municipalities and fire services across Ontario, have begun to put signs, address signs on rural agricultural property where there normally isn't a building or a dwelling that has a normal municipal address sign. And we call this project Farm 911. It's happening across Durham region. Every fire service and municipality has the opportunity to do this. And we in Scugog have a registration on scugog.ca where you as a member of our agricultural community can say, hey, you know something? I fit that criteria. And do an application. We'll come in and discuss with you your agricultural property where there is no building, no dwelling, and no municipal signage. And we'll try and make it happen so that we can put a 911 sign at the road access to that rural property.
So you can decrease the time that it takes you to get there to assist.
Yeah, so let's just say we're out in the field and something happens. Call 911. Well, when you call 911, the 911 system will coordinate with that address and send emergency services to that address, which inherently is closer to you than perhaps where the dwelling or the signage is for that whole big piece of property.
Okay.
100 acres, 200 acres in size.
So if people want to apply for that, that's scugog.ca.
Scugog.ca.
Okay, now we have less than a minute,
Yes.
and we are going to really quickly talk about fire ban.
Fire ban, yeah, 100%. So we're getting very close to the fire ban season.
Okay.
And through council in Scugog, we've allowed flexibility for when we do our fire ban in the spring. So yes, when all this white stuff melts off and our fields are very raw and brown and burnt from the winter, the fire ban's coming.
Okay.
Follow us on scugog.ca.
Okay.
You'll learn when the fire ban's happening and when it comes off.
Okay, wonderful. Always great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting sober driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
Hey folks, it's me, Giovanni Patiti, the host of the RTV quiz show, the hottest show on television. It's the hilarious quiz show where you, the viewers, play for valuable non-existent prizes. It's got great trivia, fun facts, and a lot of laughs, all blended together in a perfect cocktail of edutainment. So join us Wednesdays at 7:30 right here on Rogers TV. Nice.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. I have film critic Eric Martin in the house.
Hey,
How are
Jackie.
you, Eric?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited because we have some new movies that are getting ready to launch.
Yeah. There's one movie in particular that's playing right now in limited release. I was going to say limited release, but that's not a word. Is I Like Movies, which is Chandler Levack's feature-length directorial debut, and it's a story that takes place in Burlington in the early 2000s, and it's about a self-centered cinephile who literally is kind of going through a very kind of important moment in his life in terms of learning that the world doesn't revolve around him. And what is fascinating about it is that a lot of it shot in and around the greater GTA, including Ajax. So Harwood Plaza in particular plays an important role in the film. And so when you're watching the movie, and if you've lived in Ajax or gone by this plaza, you'll know it right away, and it's actually very prominent. So watching a movie like this, you kind of had that added bonus of thinking to yourself, oh, this is a place where it's very familiar, and it's not just somewhere in Toronto. But it's always fascinating to watch production shoot outside of Toronto in that case, yeah.
Now did you say cinephile?
Yes.
Okay, I've never heard that word. What's
a film buff, somebody that is a film enthusiast. And so this character, Lawrence Queller, is a high school senior, and he's getting ready to figure out, okay, what he wants to do next, but at the same time, he's never thinking about anybody else. And in that process, you get to see a character who finds a little bit more empathy and understanding. And what Chandler Levac does, because she's also a film critic, is she understands not to go into the tropes of the coming-of-age genre. So when you're watching this character, he is a prickly protagonist, but he's never treated cruelly to make a point about the story. And you understand, the world around him as he is maturing or trying to mature and become a better person, is that, this is someone that, needed this kind of kick in order to move on in life.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Now, there's another John Wick movie coming out. Was this Chapter 4? Chapter 4. Do you need to have seen Chapter 1, 2, and 3 before seeing 4?
You know what? I think, if you have the mythology and the world building of this kind of assassin sort of hierarchy will add to the context of the storytelling.
Okay.
But to be honest, I have not been the biggest fan of the first 3 movies. This one works, and I think why it works so well is because it's playing with mortality, and we see Keanu Reeves as John Wick here sort of, dealing with exhaustion. The film is nearly 3 hours long, but all the parts
sounds exhausting.
It is, but all the parts come together. The action choreography, the movie references, right off the bat, there's an amazing transitional kind of cut that is basically just saying, hey, this director, Chad Stahelski, who is a former stuntman, loves Lawrence of Arabia. And those kind of classic movie references play such a pivotal role within those action sequences, and how sort of the language of action cinema has evolved over the past decade or so, and it has kind of a video game adjacent quality to it as well.
Cool.
And just the lighting and the texture of it. And yeah, it is exhausting, it is long, but if you love these films, or if you love the art of action cinema, this is definitely something to check out.
All right, so that's coming to theaters March 24th.
Yes.
All right, now there's one other movie, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Who's in that?
So this is an exciting movie because it played at TIFF last year, and it was under the radar for most of its production. And when it was announced to play at the fest, part of the story is it's about a group of activists who come together to literally blow up a pipeline in West Texas and take on big oil. And these characters, as you're watching them, their moral compasses all differ, but you get to understand why each one, is coming to this project and their motivations, and understanding them as people. And so this is one of those films that when you sit down and the lights go dark and the movie begins, you will want to take the deepest breath possible, because by the end of the film, you will be on the edge of your seat. It is that intense.
So this is an action-packed.
It is, but it's a balance of action and drama, and it has an ecological message to it that is actually trying to say something about where we are environmentally speaking, and who we can be as people. And again, it's arguing both sides of the situation, where it's like, are these people doing the right thing in terms of, taking on possibly a terrorist act?
Yeah.
And so, this conversation, this dialogue it is portraying is so fascinating. And again, you're just captivated by just the editing of this movie, because any film that usually has a flashback usually slows down the pacing. Mm-hmm. When you're in kind of the moment in a big scene. When this cuts back to a character's backstory, you are still completely engaged with what's going on.
Okay, I'm excited to see that. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give kudos to Port Perry because the movie Thanksgiving is being filmed in Port Perry as this show right now is airing, as this segment is going to air.
Yeah.
We are doing filming, I'm not involved with this, but the filming of Thanksgiving, which is a horror, right?
Yes, from director Eli Roth, yeah.
Okay, so, and it's also filming in Pickering, is it?
Yes, yeah. Apparently, doing some research before coming on the show, it's going to be shooting for a couple weeks in Port Perry and Pickering. So it's going to be fascinating because this is based on a trailer that played in between the Grindhouse movie.
I gotta wrap it. But you know what? Patrick Dempsey is starring in that, and I'm really excited when that ends up coming out. So thank you so much. We'll be back with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
It was our 35th anniversary. To celebrate, we were on our way to Mama Rosie's, where we had our first date. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and listened. It helped us get to safety. So when I think of our anniversary, because now we have even more to celebrate.
Hi, I'm Daryl.
And I'm Julie.
We're the hosts of the Mindvine Mental Health Show presented by Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences.
Each episode, we get the conversation going by talking with experts and people impacted by mental illness.
Join the conversation with Mindvine.
Only on Rogers TV.
Lovely viewers, it's your host of On the Couch, Antoine El Hashim, reminding you to tune in for every episode of Season 9 of the longest running and most loved local queer talk show on Rogers TV. Check it out.
Welcome back to Uxbridge Scugog Life. So that is a wrap. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us on the show. If you are wanting some more information or maybe getting some help on your own financial spring cleaning, you can visit the bdo.ca website. If you are on a farm and you want to make sure that emergency services are going to come to you swiftly, check out scugog.ca and apply for the Farm 911 project. If you want to be on the show, you can send us an email, uxbridgescugog@rci.rogers.com. So thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with more on Uxbridge Scugog Life.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
My dad was a railway porter. It was just about the only job a black man could get. But he had big plans for us. Music would be our ticket out of poverty. I knew we couldn't afford that piano, so I practiced twice as hard.
Nice, Daisy. Okay, Oscar, let's hear it.
Turns out, I wasn't half bad. Then I found jazz, or it found me. It wasn't all easy, though. I faced a lot of hate, but I found